Hey team, it's Conrad Tracy, addiction coach from Melbourne, Australia. If you've ever told yourself this is the last time but found yourself doing it again, this video is for you. Because here's the truth, addiction isn't just about willpower. It's about what's happening underneath the surface, deep in your subconscious mind. Right now, there's a part of you that's fighting against change. It's pulling you back into old patterns and making you sabotage yourself. And it's keeping you stuck in the same cycle. And unless you know how to rewire your subconscious, you'll keep slipping back no matter how badly you want to quit. So in this video, I'm going to break down why your subconscious overrides your conscious decisions, how triggers actually work and why they are so sneaky, the real reason addiction recovery feels so hard. And most importantly, how to reprogram your mind so you can finally break free. This session was designed and developed with leading Melbourne psychologist Dan Solomon, and I am so grateful for his feedback. So let's get into it. Hey team, welcome to The Hidden Reason You Can't Quit Addiction and the Subconscious Mind Explained. Let's go. So the first thing that I want you to deeply understand is that your mind operates on two levels, okay? The conscious mind, it is logical, it is rational, and it is in the moment decision making, okay? Your subconscious mind is your deep-seated beliefs, your habits, and emotional triggers that drive your behavior automatically, okay? So it's kind of running in the background and it's based on all of your historical past. Your subconscious stores patterns based on past experiences, and it's why you can know something is bad for you, but you still do it, okay? Because your subconscious is wired to repeat familiar patterns, even if they're destructive, okay? Like when you pick up the phone and call someone you shouldn't, or, go to pick up a drug or lean into a behavior. So the key thing to remember here is your conscious mind says, I want to change, okay? So on the 2nd of April, 2025, I want to change, but your subconscious mind says, this is who we are. And your subconscious always wins, okay? Now, hopefully, by the end of this video, we know how to change that. Now, let's talk about why we stay stuck in destructive patterns, okay? So even when you're desperate to change, you might find yourself repeating the same behaviors, and that causes a lot of frustration. Why do I keep on doing this? And here's why. We choose the familiar over what is right. Even if something is painful, it's what we know, and we feel safer staying there. And that's why we always talk about getting outside of your comfort zones. Addiction isn't just about substances, it's about emotions. And when a deep-seated trigger gets activated, your subconscious will do whatever it takes to escape that discomfort. Okay? So it's really important to figure out when you get triggered, what's the emotional center? Justification and self-sabotage. Your mind will find reasons to return to old habits. I'll just do it this one time, or I've been doing well, I deserve a break, okay? And Dan Solomon calls this subconscious justification, yeah? The subtle ways your mind tricks you into staying in the stuck and destructive cycle. The fastest way out of discomfort is an old habit. The real work sitting in that feeling, not running from it. Identifying and reprogramming subconscious triggers. Now, subconscious triggers can override logic, okay? Really important. Subconscious triggers can override logic. They're the automatic responses that pull you back into old habits, okay? So I wanted to show you how to actually identify a subconscious trigger versus, something that's going on in your environment, okay? So if you feel a strong emotional reaction to something minor, that could be a subconscious trigger. A sudden urge or craving with no obvious reason, right? Like I'm walking down the street and all of a sudden I want to act out, subconscious trigger. Justifying behaviors that go against your goals. This is not what I want. This is not who I want to be. So why do I keep on doing this? Okay. And feeling off, but not knowing why is a critical one. And anybody that's been through this process or is thinking about going through it, this is something that you're going to have to deal with a lot of the time. And Dan describes these as, subconscious triggers, moments when an emotional imprint from the past hijacks your decision-making process without even realizing it. Okay. And I refer to it in a couple of ways. I think about it like, if you were on a horse and carriage and you were holding the reins, okay, and you're guiding the horses. If you ever are going through life and you feel like somebody else is holding the reins, that's a really good sign. And the other one that I think about, which is really a beautiful analogy, is the marionette. Okay. And a marionette, if anybody doesn't know what it is, it's like the puppet master. So you've got strings attached to, your arms and your legs, and there's somebody up the top kind of controlling you. So if you start to feel that way, that can be a really good sign that you're being subconsciously triggered. Now, let's keep on moving. This is the most critical part, okay? So how do I actually reprogram my subconscious mind? Okay, and we use a system called the mirror method, which is super, super good. Now, the first thing that you need to do is you need to build awareness, okay? So being able to recognize your patterns and acknowledging what's happening, okay? So you might keep a little voice note or a diary or a journal, and you go through a day and you're like, wow, I really wasn't holding the reins today, or I felt like I was being, I felt like I was the puppet or the marionette. And you might be surprised how many times that happens, okay? I've worked with people and they're like, it's over 30 times a day, right? So that's a lot. Number 2, reflection. And you can use the mirror method, which I'll talk about, or you can, again, come up with something your own to track emotional states and subconscious justifications, okay? So I felt like I wasn't in control. Somebody else had the reins, and my emotional state was fear, or it was anxiety, or it was deep sadness. And then my mind started to run and I started making justifications like, you've been doing so well, you deserve a break, nobody will notice, I've got the time, I've got the freedom. Okay. Number 3, reframing. You've got to challenge and rewrite the narrative attached to each trigger. So awareness and reflection are critically important, because if you're in your conscious day and your mind and you're like, oh, I don't feel like I'm holding the reins, and I feel really anxious and my mind is starting to run, okay? Before you had the knowledge of what those 3 things were, that's when you go and pick up a drug or a drink or do something that you're not proud of, okay? And this is the difference between knowing and not knowing. So when you know, you can actually call it out. Oh, you know what? I actually think I'm being subconsciously triggered, and that anxiety is probably to do with something else that I haven't dealt with, but I feel it and I get it. And those justifications, I'm not going to make those today because they don't align with my values, right? So very important that you call it out and you can have a conversation with it, okay? And number 4, exposure and response prevention. So sit with discomfort instead of avoiding it. And I'm going to teach you a very safe way to do that. So remember, you don't train for battle in the middle of a war. Deep subconscious work happens in a safe place where you can actually process and heal. So let me give you an example. If you went back to number 3, the reframing, and you're like, when I was in that situation, I felt like my hands were off the reins and I felt deeply anxious, and then I started to make those justifications. The trick to this is to not lean into that feeling of deep anxiety in the middle of your day in public, okay? It's about going home, right? Or going to a place where you feel 100% safe and secure, and then calling in that feeling and doing some exploration around it, okay? So you might acknowledge it in the moment, in the day, and go, oh, okay, I feel deeply anxious. I'm going to park that and I'm going to come back to it when I get home, and we're going to explore it because I have the capacity to do it. And then you might sit down, you might lay down, you might call it back in, and it might give you some answers, okay? And then you talk to your coach or your psychologist or your psychotherapist and you work through it, okay? So you must practice in a safe space. Do not do it in the middle of a war. And this is why coming into a community where you can be safe and do this inside a framework with no judgment is a really, really good idea. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Now, let's talk about the role of identity in recovery. And this is critically important because I don't know about you, but I didn't get well or clean or whatever you want to call it just to be good enough or have a mediocre life, right? I really wanted to create a new sense of identity, one that I was deeply, deeply proud of. Now, stopping an addictive behavior isn't enough. If you still see yourself as the same person who used, you always feel like you're fighting yourself. Okay. So it's like your new version versus your old version. They're always at loggerheads. Some people might call that, conscious versus subconscious or inner child versus current self. And look, all I know is that when you make this change, you've got to step into a complete new identity and you've got to bring your subconscious and your inner child with you and you've got to integrate them, okay? Because they are intrinsically part of you. Now, again, we use an amazing system called the mirror method, and this really supports identity shift, okay? So we uncover self-limiting beliefs that keep you stuck. We define the person you are becoming and reinforce it daily. And then we rewire your subconscious identity so it aligns with your recovery and your identity. Okay. And when Dan spoke about this, he introduced the idea that what is right for you, and this is very important, won't always feel right because the subconscious craves the familiar, even if the familiar is destructive. Okay. The mirror method helps shift this by consistently reinforcing a new identity that supports long-term change. Okay. So it's like each day we've got to be pitching it forward. Yeah. And that helps to alleviate the pull of the subconscious who's like, don't do it. You're not safe. Who are you without me? We're best friends. Like it's grappling. So if you don't pull, it's like a tug of war. So if you don't pull it the other way, you're going to get pulled back. And that's the best way I can explain it. So real recovery isn't just quitting a substance. It's building a new self, one that doesn't need it anymore. Okay. Now let's talk about the science of subconscious rewiring. Some of the most effective methods. Okay, now the mirror method is something that I developed with myself and with Dan. And this is a structured reflection process to track, understand, and rewire subconscious triggers. And it works very, very well inside our community, which is the circuit breaker. Now, in terms of more commonly known psychology, EMDR, right, is a rapid way to process and reframe traumatic memories. And kind of not refile them, but file them. Okay, because look, I won't go into it, but they definitely don't have the right name or place for themselves. So you've got to be able to do that. IFS, internal family systems, helps identify and heal the parts of you that are stuck in old patterns. And schema therapy, which rewires deep-seated core beliefs and self-sabotaging behaviors. Okay, mindfulness and breathwork helps regulate your nervous system and create awareness of subconscious urges and strong feelings. Okay, so you can see, like, we support all of this stuff, and inside our community, we've got amazing psychologists like Dan and psychiatrists, integrative GPs, and I think coaching, which is about what's happening today and the future, coupled with all of this stuff, which helps you to integrate and consolidate the past, is a beautiful combination. And I guess that's why we're getting, such great results inside the circuit breaker. Now, in terms of our approach, and this is critical, right? So again, we teach the mirror method. It's a system that we have integrated into our program, which is a modern structured approach to addiction recovery for successful professionals. Okay. We get expert guidance from people like Dan. We have a private and structured community for real transformation, and we're deeply passionate about protecting that community. We've got a proven framework, the identity integration model for subconscious integration and long-term change. And if you're serious about breaking the cycle, then this level of work is what makes it happen. Okay. So being inside an environment, being inside a framework, consistency, routines, safety, and then all of the resources and tools and support that you need. Now, addiction is about avoiding emotion. Okay. Recovery is about facing it and coming out stronger. And sometimes you need to be in the right place to go through that. So guys, I hope that this has made sense, right? And we've gone through a lot and we've done it really, really quickly. So if you've got questions, let me know. And I just want you to remember this. If you've been stuck in the same cycle, right? Now you actually know why. It's not about willpower, it's about what's happening under the surface. And if you don't rewire those subconscious patterns, nothing is going to change, okay? But the good news is this: if you can reprogram your subconscious, you can break free. Right? I've done it. I've helped hundreds of people to do it. And it starts with awareness, reflection, and the right tools. Inside the circuit breaker, we go deep into this work. We don't just tell you to stop. Yeah. We show you how to rewire the real problems and actually create change that lasts. Now, if you're serious about this, reach out to me, hit the link in my bio, and we can have a conversation to get you started and really get you moving in the right direction. Okay. If this video has helped you, hit like, hit subscribe, drop a comment, ask me a question. I'd love to hear from you, and particularly around what was your biggest takeaway. And let's keep this conversation going. All right. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.